Welcome back to part 5 of Left of the Dial. This is the series where I am looking at bands that were left of the dial in the 80s. They were not part of the main charts. They were either on the college music charts or more underground bands. There was so much good music that was going on in the 80s, but some of it we just don't know about because they never hit big, or some were underground, but then they rose up and they became popular. So we're looking at this. I'm pulling 100 different bands. They're not really ranked in an order from best to worst, but I will say my favorite ones are at the very end. But most of these others, it's hard to say which one I like better. But I hope you're finding some interesting things as I'm going through in some groups that maybe you didn't know about, maybe a little tidbit about them. This has been a fun exploration for me. So today we're starting at number 60 and working our way down to number 51, and then we're halfway there. Okay, so let's begin. Number 60 is The Vapors. This was an English new wave power pop band. They formed in '78, lasted until '81, so it didn't really go that long. The Jam's bass player, Bruce Foxton, he actually spotted these guys and began to manage them along with John Weller, who was Paul Weller's dad. Just a little fun fact for you. In '79, the Vapors, they toured with the Jam, which makes perfect sense due to how they were kind of connected together. They were also this was a group that really was known for socially conscious lyrics that at times could be really dark. And a lot of people don't think about that, but because on here, this is the first album, Nuclear Days. Now, Nuclear Days, think about that. Even this is a pun. Nuclear Days. That's how political these guys were. So Nuclear Days, this was released in 1980 and actually went to number 3 in the UK. And it's a pun. It's just a pun for nuclear weapons and power stations that were huge social issues at the time. You can see here, look at the little symbols. It had the hit, Turning Japanese, which kind of gave these guys, just a fun kind of, band. It's about teenage masturbation. They say, no, it's not. But there was so much more to this. There's the song, A Letter to Hero. Think about this, the song Letter to Hero. It's about a kid, this is before World War II, and he has a pen pal in Japan. And his Japanese pen pal is really, he's really nationalistic and believes in Japan. And so the song's about this guy, he's sad, this teenager's sad because suddenly he's going to lose his pen pal in Japan. I mean, that's kind of heavy stuff. There's a song called 60-Second Interval, and it's a song about the short ceasefires that happened during World War I, so the armies could attend to their wounded and get them pulled out of no man's land. Who does those kind of songs, huh? There's a song called there's Cold War, there's Prisoners, there's Bunkers. These are all songs, and it's just heavy stuff, dark lyrics, but it's done to jangle pop. So it gives it this bright shine, but when you really listen to it, this stuff's, it's dark. The lyrics, they're just catchy melodies. Their next album, their follow-up, was Magnets. This thing went even darker. So, interesting group, the Vapors. You think of them as jangly power pop, which they were, but really socially conscious. Number 60, the Vapors. Number 59, Dukes of the Stratosphere. This was an XTC side project, and they put out 2 albums from '85 to '87. they modeled themselves after the British psychedelic groups of the 60s. And they were marketed as a new band. And this band, Dukes of the Stratosphere, actually outsold the two XTC albums that came out during that time, which was Big Express and Skylarking. You can bet that the band was pretty thrilled about that one. So 12 o'clock, this here, it's a six song, kind of an EP, shall we say. This was released on April Fool's Day. Pretty funny stuff. And it was presented at the start as a long-lost collection of recordings by a late 1960s group. Well, Virgin then got involved and they said, no, it's a mysterious new group and has 60 influences, which they do, and it just fills the album. There's reverb, guitar playback, playing back backwards, and lots of echo. I mean, it's all over the place. You can hear the influences on here of, shall we say, there's Syd Barrett, Pink Floyd, of the Beatles. You can feel it, you can hear it. It is filled, it's absolutely filled with some of the most wonderful poppy songs. And they just slide perfectly into that 60s vibe, which the artwork does too. They came out with another one. This followed up, and this is Sonic Sunspots. And this was the follow-up in '87, but Partridge was really reluctant. He did not want to do this one, but Virgin wanted a follow-up due to the success of this 6-song album. So this was made on all vintage equipment. This one was made on modern equipment. And guess what? This one outsold Skylarking too. People preferred it over Skylarking, which is considered to be their classic. They went on to do Oranges and Lemons, Lemons and Oranges, I don't know, but this kind of a 60s vibe then came into their next XTC project. That was probably their best-selling album. So, number 59, kind of XTC, but it is the Dukes of Stratosphere. Good stuff. Number 58 is Long Riders. This group, it came out of LA in 1983 and they lasted until 87. Then they put out a total of 3 albums during that time, and they were a big part of the alt country and Paisley underground movement that was happening. All the members were multi-instrumentalists, and they were heavily influenced by Graham Parsons, the Byrds, and various other country, but also punk bands. The name, they took that from a movie that was big, late 70s or early 80s. I'd seen it. It's called The Long Riders. It was a Western. It's a pretty darn cool Western, too. This group, they really put a hard edge on country music, giving it more of a rocking sound. Now, their first album was Native Sons, which I wish I had on vinyl, but as of yet I don't. And that one had the seminal hit, I Had a Dream. That came out in 84. This here, State of the Union, came out in 85. This album, it did receive really heavy college radio play and went to actually number 2 in the UK country charts. It's been, I should say, described as having country rock, but yet the jangle of the Byrds and the rock and roll licks of Chuck Berry and the energy of the Clash. And there is a lot of energy in this album. I mean, in the background, you can hear the opening track, and it's just a ripper. It's called Looking for Lewis and Clark, and it has this like Louie type sing-along chorus, looking for Lewis and Clark, and it keeps going. The drums just bang out the tune, and the harmonies are super tight, and then they throw in a harmonica just to give it more excitement. Absolutely incredibly fun song. There's songs like Capturing the Flag, Good Times Tomorrow, Hard Times Today. All of them rock hard. State of the Union, it has a kind of a rock and roll boogie vibe to it. Years long ago, has vocals with the Byrds, actually almost like a Tom Petty type sound and feel to them. This was Americana before there was Americana, and it does get, this one gets overlooked versus this one, but this is a lot of fun. So number 58, Long Riders. Number 57, Hoodoo Gurus. The band was formed in '81 in Perth, Australia, and they're still playing to this day. This band, they play cowpunk, garage rock with tinges of psychedelia, along with power pop tossed in. They were, in the 80s, really mainstays on the college rock circuit. And they originally, when they came out, they called themselves Leg Hoodoo Gurus. But wiser minds said, let's drop the lay, okay? They had a keen sense of humor, and it really shows up throughout their lyrics. They've had 10 studio albums, and 4 of them from the 80s. You know, here's a few of them. A few of the other ones we have. Poison Pen. There is a Magna Cum Louder. We have Stone Age Rumpus. Another one. A variety of albums. And you can find them all fairly inexpensive. But we're going to talk about this one. This is Mars Needs Guitars, and this came out in '85. And it was a play on the title of the movie Mars Needs Women. And it begins with the song Bittersweet. And Cat says, meow. Isn't that nice? And Cat threw me off. So the song Bittersweet actually was a single that went to number 10 in Australia. And it is just, it's like a gem of a song. It has these beautiful guitars and just gorgeous harmonies are happening. Kind of like a power pop classic. There's Hayride to Hell, which is a beautiful rocking cowpunk type song with incredibly hilarious lyrics. These guys could write really funny songs. Then there is it's also kind of a hillbilly freakout, shall we say. Mars Needs Guitars, that song. It has a primitive B-movie stomp. You hear that? Kind of little psychobilly type stuff going on. There's also one, it's called Like Wow Wipeout, and it's just surf-tinged guitars happening throughout that song. And there's just these pounding drums and 3-chord guitars blasting away. This is pure fun music and really puts a smile on your face when you listen to the Hoodoo Gurus. Such a great band, and you can find them really inexpensive out there, really well worth looking at. And the cat is licking my face. Why are you licking, man? Why? What? Okay, come on. Hoodoo Gurus, number 57. Say goodbye, cat. Number 56 is Ultravox. This was a British new wave band. It actually started all the way back in '73 under the name of Tiger Lily. In '76, though, they got signed by Island and they changed their name to Ultravox. Their influences were heavily with Roxy music, but the New York Dolls, Bowie, and Kraftwerk. Isn't that? I mean, what a mix, huh? What a stew. They released 3 albums underneath their first lead singer, a guy, he called himself John Fox, but he left and was replaced by Midge Ure. I'm probably saying his last name wrong. I know the name Ure, I believe. Their early music, their first 3 albums were more post-punk, but this morphed into synth pop and really got into new wave. So this album here, and this is Vienna, the name of the album. This was released in 1980, and this changed the course of music for a lot of bands. What happened is they brought to the forefront the new romantic movement in synth pop. before it was out there. There's a song, Astrodyne, I believe that's right. It's this long instrumental, and it just features these sweeping, majestic synthesizers, and the just beautiful arrangements with them. There's Mr. X, which is kind of a simpler, sparser type song. Reminds you of Kraftwerk when you listen to that. What's cool is all of the members contributed to making this album, which really helps. The song, it's playing in the background right now, it's Vienna. And that just has this beautiful European feel. Cinematic, shall we say. It starts slow and bleak and really was minimalistic, but then it slowly builds into this beautiful orchestrated sound, and just the music swells up. Actually, the label did not want to release Vienna as a single. They were just pushing back because there was a long violin solo. And violin solos, that's not going to sell. But that's what made that song so cool. But they thought it was very uncommercial. This album was produced by a guy named Connie Plank, who he had also done David Bowie's Berlin trilogy. So the new romantic movement began with this album, and Ultravox brought that type of music into the mainstream. But at the time, they were left of the dial. Number 56, Ultravox. Number 55, The Vipers. So the Vipers, they came out of New York in the mid-'80s, and it was one of the leading groups that were part of this garage rock come psychedelic revival that was happening in bands at that time. You can see by the photo, they dressed like it was 1967. They played tambourines, did fuzzed out guitars. I mean, they checked off all the boxes. They modeled themselves after the Seeds, the Standells, the Shadows of the Night. That was their inspiration. So this was their first album. It's called Out of the Nest, which came out in 1984. And their lead-off single was Nothing From Today. And it just says it all. The music it's from the past, but that's what they wanted. That's what they liked. It's pure garage rock. No new ground was broken here. If you want something totally different, something you haven't heard, you're not going to find this. Instead, they're playing what they like. Each song on this album, I mean, it's just filled with fuzzy guitars. There's some added reverb just for fun. Great vocals and a lot of really nice harmonizing. If you are a lover of 60s garage rock, you're probably not going to go wrong if you buy The Vipers, Out of the Nest. Coming in at number 55. Number 54, the Blacklight Chameleons. Here's another New York band formed in '85. They were part of that neo-psychedelic garage rock resurgence that was going on. And this band, actually, they rose from the ashes of the group called Mad Violence. In '86, they added on a lead singer. It was a former model named Sharon Middledorf. Yep. If you're going to have a lead singer, let's make sure it's a model and hope she can sing decently. Otherwise, it helps. But the band, they lasted until 1988. So in 1987, they released this album called Intermission. It is filled with, and when you listen, you can hear the Doors influence with the organ work, and it's filled with fuzz guitar, jangly guitars, and of course you have to have the reverb. They even allowed a drum solo on the song Fired Up. They stick primarily to their psychedelic roots. The song Surf Wizard's theme is just this trippy instrumental number that has a quiet surf guitar that just keeps the song floating along. There's 13 Miles to Midnight, and the guitarist and the group leader Dino Sorbello, they trade lyric. He trades lyrics back and forth with Sharon M. The album, again, like the Vipers, there's nothing really earth-shattering. It's just a group paying tribute to the 60s psychedelic music genre. The vocals, I kind of think, are marginal. Lyrics, nothing earth-shattering, but they produce a nice sound of good, not great, but still it's good psych music. I think you could probably find this thing for not a lot of money if you see it out there, but just a fun album to have, the Blacklight Chameleons. I mean, what a great name, right? Number 54. Number 53, it's the Stems. And my buddy Dean at Grandma's Handbag sent me this one just recently. I did have Heads Up by the Stems. So, the band was formed in 83, I believe, in Perth, Australia, and they lasted till 87, but in 03 they did reform again. And again, it's an alternative band that was influenced by 60s garage and 70s power pop. Their influences were Electric Prunes, the Standells, the Easy Beats, all major influences. They found that they had a really strong following in Australia, and their singles actually made it onto the British charts. Let's see. Oh, here we go. You can there's the band members there. In 86, they toured and they supported the Flaming Groovies and the Hoodoo Gurus. So in 87, they released this album, At First Sight, Violets Are Blue. It debuted at number 1 on the Australian alt charts. The lead-off single, At First Sight, is actually an Australian classic. It begins with that classic kind of jangly guitar chords, and it becomes kind of a mid-tempo power pop bliss, shall we say. Just a classic slow dance number in the prom. Not too slow, but still just something that, hey, nice song to dance to. Then things take off with what's going on right now, called Sad Girl, followed up by Rosebud. And that just takes you back into the 60s with screaming guitars and screaming vocals. The guitars, they have just that great garage rock sound. And then the vocals, they fall into pure power pop with these very close harmonies with the other members. Each song to me is like an audio gem happening for my ears. The Man with the Golden Heart, they pull out the organ to really give it some great garage rock feel, and then they add in some yeah yeahs, just put it over the top. There are a few slower numbers on the album, which, personally I think they lose some of their energy. Still, this is a great album, a classic album by a fantastic alternative band that really never caught on in the US. Number 53, the incredible The Stems. Number 52, The Rain Parade. Rain Parade was part of the LA Paisley underground scene. They formed in 81, broke up in 86, but then in 2012 they formed again, and I believe they're still out playing to this day. They played their version of psychedelic rock. Big influences to them were the Byrds, especially 8 Miles High, but you also hear, shall we say, Echoes era Pink Floyd. You can hear tinges of Love and Buffalo Springfield with the dark psychedelic sensibility. This group, I'll tell you, they wear their influences on their sleeves, but they also transcend them. They released just 2 albums. So this is the first album, Emergency Third Rail Power Trip. This came out in 83, and it's such a gentle record of just neatly crafted songs and mildly trippy textures. Some have claimed that it's the best album to come out of from all the psychedelic underground bands of the 80s. There's just these beautiful, gentle psychedelic pop textures, like I mentioned, but there's also more dark, introspective lyrics. This can't be today. It's very, very birdish. You can feel that. But then there's let's see, what's it called? What's She Done to You? Or no, What's She Done to Your Mind? That was it. And it's just takes you on a really dreamy ride. I mean, the guitars are played backwards and just all over the place. The vocals, it's kind of like being wrapped up in a warm blanket. They have a softness to them that it wouldn't be felt really again until, to me, when you think of Mazzy Star, which one of the members, David Roback, went in and formed Mazzy Star, and then you have those soft kind of vocals. Such a beautiful album, my goodness. It really is a classic of the 80s, and it's not as inexpensive as some of the other ones, but it is worth seeking out. The Rain Parade, coming in at number 52. Number 51, Agent Orange. So we went from that softness, the warmth of the Rain Parade, and now we're getting into something that was really hard and edgy. Agent Orange was a punk rock band out of California. I believe Placentia. Don't know if I'm saying that one right, but they formed in 79, and they're still going on, which is really cool when you think for a punk band. They were one of the first punk bands that mixed surf rock with punk rock. So, I mean, just picture this. Picture a band that combines the best elements of the Sex Pistols with the Ventures, and then add in some Blue Oyster Cult just for fun. They created their own form, shall we say, of surf twang with really these smart metal chops and just a punk drive to it. Such good stuff. This is an original, and it's their 1981 classic, Living in Darkness, which had 7 originals plus an instrumental. They do Nizzerloo from Dick Dale. And to this date, this album has sold 1 million copies. The lyrics, they're very personal. It's about the struggles of being a punk in the early scene and just about living and trying to retain your sanity. And it's just filled with social commentary. It contains one of the most famous songs that they play at almost every concert called Bloodstain, and which contains one of the greatest punk screams ever put on record. What you hear in the background, it's Too Young to Die. And the bass and the drums, they just slowly increase in momentum as the song goes on until finally their lead singer, Mike Palm, just screams, "We're too young to die!" And then it explodes into a sonic barrage of noise. Just, oh man, it is pumps you up. Miserlou, it adds punk distortion to that classic surf song. It is outstanding. The lyrics are very dark on this album, but it's filled with this relentless energy of a band creating a punk masterpiece, which is what they did. This is such a classic album for those of you that like your punk as it began to move into hardcore. Number 51, Agent Orange. Here we've done 50 albums, folks, and I appreciate you for coming along this ride for me. Music's not for everyone, but for those that want to learn something different that happened in the 80s or just want to revisit and find out what are some of these crazy bands or just stuff you love, you can't go wrong. So I thank you for joining me once again. 5 more segments, 50 more bands to get through. So I'll see you next week on Left of the Dial. Have yourself a great week, everyone. Bye.